And hello, folks. This is the date. Today, now 4:47 p.m., July 8th, 2022. And it looks pretty much like I don't know what to say, except that at 4, approximately like quarter to 5, when I was reading about what happened to the late Prime Minister, Japanese Prime Minister Abe, my condolences. It was probably one of the wildest things I've heard to happen in our history of the world today. But that happened. So I feel it's not a really good thing. Also, not to forget, British Prime Minister has resigned. So, yeah, that happened. And the week started off with the Georgia Guidestone getting blasted out by something that nobody needs to know or explain because apparently this thing can go down, right? So here we are today. Now, 4:48 p.m. Since 4:30 a.m., the internet of, at least in this communication tower, which is at Rogers for many people, has been down. Now, how often does that happen in the history of just over 30 years, 40 years using a computer and or what we have known as the internet? Just break down like it's not even downtown anymore. It's like out. I see people going outside though for things. I haven't, it's almost like I don't know. I haven't really been too far around outside of the neighborhood, but I would have to wonder if they've had to shut down a bunch of businesses and other facilities that at least are with this particular provider. We have yet to see. But make it interesting enough to say your next shopping item to get as of today should be your transistor radio, where at least you have a chance in maybe even nuclear hell to get a signal back to the original old school. Heck, you could probably even do that without batteries nowadays. So it's food for thought. I think I'll be going to start researching that after as we continue on the date on the next vlog coming up, hopefully by 11:11. We don't know anymore because right now I feel with things are going on so long, this is almost like an attack. An attack on maybe something we think that we would never lose. Let's say like even electricity, right? Well, we know a lot of stuff is set up on or registered with what the internet is, right? Banking. So that's very inconvenient. So yeah, if you didn't see this as a premonition to what we've been hearing about getting ready for all these eventful things that you know the other I want to be careful. I just say like let's say folks with power, maybe when they're getting discovered and getting called out live by God, Yeshua, Yahweh, right? One time, we're just having to get ready for that. Don't forget, we also were told that we're going to have to get ready for another round of medical attention and a possible mandate. So it's not like shit gets real because my post is at least bringing some of you to think outside the box, the mundane, as we call it, right? And somehow in that mundane, you'll find the nuggets, the gold nuggets of truth. Because even all those books are written biblical, everything that says that's coming true, at the end of the day, there is the truth. And the truth says, at least the oldest of truths is, well, for example, thou shalt not kill. And that's one, not just a can't, but there's some It's known there are more than, oh, another 40 more or whatnot. Up is even more. And all of this is being revealed by a lot of prophets, a lot of people of the signs, animals even, right? You see what's been going on with cows, white cows, black cows, and once again, who's outside the box in the sense of geography across the planet. Today is also not the summer solstice that just started recently, the end of June. Today is the longest day of sunlight that had been recorded recently. Today, now at 4:52 p.m. 2022, July 8th, that's 0708, is supposed to be when the sun. So let's say this started this morning at the same time around 4:30 a.m., right? Where the sun was rising and anywhere across that. Whether now we're talking, as we say, up to the firmament is the word. We never hear much about the firmament, and I'm not going to do that. But the way our sun will be moving today by even night time, let's say my case alone, since this morning, I noticed it also. This morning around 4, yeah, it's already daylight. The sun was out, right? I believe the universal, the term is universal horizon or something like that. But I noticed like 4, it was doing that. So even like in say 3 lights are out, yes, you know it's night, it's dark. But now you can see sort of the place. It's not even like what they call northern lights. It's like okay, it seems to be the sun rising closer than further, right? At that time. So today, that sun, so far, if I'm correct, there are certain parts of the land, the world, right, that they get sunlight nearly 24 hours, if I'm correct, all the way up in the there are parts I might not be correct right now. But funny enough, we're just like blogging up that that's not happening at this second. If I'm correct, it's out there in the Netherlands. I'm correct. But all them put it on places, like especially like where you're near high mountains, where you can probably see the sun, probably even in a better view. But once again, I digress. That's for those people who ended up getting frozen up in the hills, in the Himalayas, and all them places. Um, that sun today, you should be able to see, and that until even as it gets, as it sets, even by they say, if you look out in the sky, and if I'm, hey, once again, you never know what you have to question everything, right? Believe it or not, but it's still going to be a longer daytime with the sun. Even though the sun has set, we'll be able to see still some horizon by 11 p.m. tonight, which is pretty long, right? And this is also, once again, counting the places where because now we're in the summer solstice, is equinox here, right? You would believe, or from what we know on the science, that hey, it should align with the clock that okay, the sun goes down anyway. I don't get too far into that, but hey, maybe we can look into the science of what's going on. But right now, today, all of this is going on simultaneously, all at the same time. So yeah, check out for the sun, enjoy it, and see. Take a look and see like around even like by midnight. They say it's not gonna. It started this morning, so now it's daylight. All right, and it looks very bright. I would still say even for some cloudyish type of day. Um, but yeah, we're supposed to still get that horizon, even though it's dusk. That dusk is gonna go on for a minute. It might even be like pre-dusk ish, right? Which is probably, and the way it was out from what I read, this is once again I pull it up and show you the science article behind it. But yeah, I guess it's something to take advantage of, right? So, with that being said, that's also the interesting phenomenon of the day. From what I understand, this does happen every year, but for some, when they mention it, like the way they've mentioned it just yesterday, right? They're saying, well, it's good the sun, it's going to appear like the sun is going to be out for quite a bit, and we have more daytime, not like the daylight savings and all that. No, we're gonna that sun will be like, hey, across the planet, we'll still get, and it's supposed to. Guess what? The sun's supposed to set by Africa, right? Once again, we got to get back to basics. Books, papers, transistor radios. That way, these conversations, at least in the meantime, as I'm recording, we could do that, right? Because right now it's different times. But yeah, that's what's going on. And there had been a report, the sun itself. Some I didn't get a chance to read the full article, but it was just like because all in the leer of CERN, which they've been, I'd say, dicking around with because maybe they really don't know what they're doing, even though they think they're doing, and it's a mystical thing. It's probably working completely against. It's one of that self destruct, self sabotage deal, right? It's all about that, and so, and of course the arrogance, and that comes with that. Um, but at least in this case, a lot of folks are freaking out because they're like, well, even biblically, once again, to the beginning about following the commandments and the laws, which would appear to be simple, but everything's so corrupted now, you would appear that they would have some control, but the control is only in the chaos and fear that we create. And in our case, people's, oh, it's like World War III coming up. I just told someone, I said, being a Gen Xer, here to at least, hey, share the word, open some minds. If you had joined the military, like myself, I nearly did, but my buddies went through it, right? My Iranian buddies, born in Canada, uh, 1991. So they saw what we called Desert Storm. Remember that? No, you don't. You don't. You were too young for Desert Storm, right? And then weapons of mass, and then all the way to Gaddafi, Osama bin Laden, 9/11, right? By this time, we're in our 30s. So I would say, effectively, when you really think of it, with the exception of the so-called troops, American troops pulling out of Afghanistan recently, which I'm sure that everywhere. There's pockets of them everywhere. We've been in World War III for the last 30 years, right? Because there hasn't been a day of freaking peace, right? It would seem, particularly after Vietnam ended, right? For us Gen Xers, this is like what, 74, 73. There was still no intense conflict until, even though there was a lot of stuff going on, yes, in the South Americas and Ireland with their IRA and all of that, crazy stuff as usual. There had been no effective, at least when Canadians had to participate in war actions, and especially since we didn't have conscription, we had done away with that, especially. So, and by this time it had been a while. Look up the history. It's one of my blogs on the Prime Minister's rib. Um, but once again, the information is out there. And what we did know, or what we did learn, was that a lot of post trauma has come from that. That post trauma coming from being on active service. One excellent book I like to refer to that I read was Romeo Delia, who was our, the head military guy, right? He was our general. And yeah, if you look up the history of what happened with Rwanda, and then we called them peace missions back then, but a lot of the peace missions unfortunately didn't pan out as such because there were massacres that happened that could have been prevented. And as we see in the history of the world, there's a lot of that. That's why I'll refer to Oliver Stone's history, the truth of the United States of America, right? Once you figure that out, you put it together. And once again, keeping your mind open is about having the inertia to do it. Put in a little fight while you're still here, because the comfortability that we have now is under threat. Once again, it's now 5:02 p.m. Today is July 8th, 2022, the seventh month. And now we are at 2022. Imagine that. For most of us now who have been around in the last century, what we call the 20th century, who would have figured those of you who made it up to today would be 2022? And it ain't no fucking Jetsons out there, right? We are in the middle of what is some folks are saying the right intellectuals, if you want to call them, 1984, which was a book based on the past, or someone who had lived in what we call our reported time of past, George Orwell, who is his parents, as I always say, let's look up his parents, writing about today, where everybody loses ultimately. That's what the book is about. Without getting into how we get there, we lose, right? And how about this? Let me throw in a spin. Nobody talks really about God, right? Because God has been ruled out. And whatever, everybody dies literally because you want to be turned into whatever the system and the big brother, who is still artificial and not God, only run by the energy and or if not minerals that handmade man-made, unless God said, well, I'm going to make you the chariots or the big eye actually come down and mess with your heads, which maybe that could be coming up soon. But I digress. All of that to say, you all be smart out there, you all be safe, give thanks and praise as this is the weekend. Once again, at this point, as this is a recording, we have no live internet, at least for what we see, what we've heard since 4 a.m. this morning, July 8th. And it's probably one of the longest recorded internet outages in our history of having the internet. Namely, also consider the businesses, all the direct billing businesses that deal with this company that is now, at this point, under some type of siege. This is why I was also throwing out there politically. For all we know, this could also be payback for interference that shouldn't have happened. So maybe there are some people running for their hide right now, just like we've seen in the last less than even almost nearly 24, just about hours, the world and our leaders change before our very eyes by what we are actually last recently read, if we could read what we've last heard at the conversation table, or even outside by the car driving by. It's really unusually quiet, almost like another world, because we haven't had the transistor in a long time. Psych! What's a transistor, once again, I ask? Well, you'd have to go to a place back in the day we used to call Radio Shack. They don't exist. I don't know. They ain't around. And who sells transistor radios anymore, right? The simplest thing that even during the Second World War, post of that, folks knew that this was the right technology to keep people together. Yeah, today's a very interesting day. But we'll be right back after this break, just to let you know what time it is. Since we're in the middle of interesting times,